Ready?
Yes.
Hello everyone, my name is Paige Rue and we are here at the USCCA booth at SHOT Show 2026 and I have Dave McDermott here. I've heard so much about you, but this is actually our first time meeting, so I'm really excited to learn a little bit about you and have everyone else learn what you do for USCCA.
Likewise.
Yeah.
Likewise. Thank you.
So walk us through first. Tell us about yourself, what do you do, and then how are you related and work with USCCA?
Okay, so I'm an attorney. Excuse me, I'm representing, in terms of USCCA, I represent people, the good guys, after they've had to defend themselves in bad situations. So I do a lot of that, and that's how I came to meet the USCCA Members. I've been representing people in self-defense cases for countless years, and I do it all over the United States.
Wow.
Yeah.
So were you always on the self-defense side, or did you start somewhere else, or how long have you been in this and working with USCCA?
Well, so this is a niche area because when I say I represent people in self-defense cases, you know, this is a self-defense case, this is a self-defense case. They're not known as self-defense cases. They're known as murder cases, attempt murder cases, aggravated battery with a firearm. So I refer them as self-defense cases. And you know, I've been practicing 28 years, and for a good number of years, I was just representing people generally in criminal matters. And I really, you know, when I first started really digging into self-defense, because we would have self-defense cases, but they were just random here and there type self-defense cases. With the influx of, with all this additional crime that's taken place in the last 10, 15 years, the landscape's totally changed. There are a lot more people that are purchasing firearms, you know, and there are a lot more people that are arming themselves because they're scared. And so because there are a lot more people arming themselves after they've purchased firearms with this fear, there are a lot more incidents where they are defending themselves and people are being criminally charged after defending themselves. And it's a really ugly space. I'm very attracted to it because, again, I feel like I'm consistently representing the good guys, but it's still a very ugly space.
Well, and I'm on the other side. I'm a firearms instructor. I work with USCCA, but my family also has 3 indoor ranges, and so we work with a lot of those new-time, first-time gun buyers, and I think there's a common misconception of like, okay, if this happens to me, I can just call any lawyer up, and I think a lot of the time that's a mistake because your representation needs to be knowledgeable in the gun space.
Absolutely.
Right, and I think that people don't think about it. It's like any lawyer can do it, and yes, but are they going to be the best for you?
So what's scary about self-defense cases, even more so, is that the majority of criminally charged matters result in a plea. I'd say about 95% of all criminally charged matters result in a plea. So I want you to just take that and just consume that, and just sit on that for a second, because if the majority of these cases are being pled out, 95 out of 100 times on average, there's a plea. Imagine what that means, you know, when you apply that to a good number of people that are defending themselves, legitimately defending themselves. So there aren't that many attorneys that actually litigate cases. Okay. So it's not just about being familiar with firearms in general and firearm laws, Second Amendment. It's also just about litigating on behalf of people, being a true voice for people, not quitting, not trying to suggest or urge that they take a plea.
The easy way out.
Because if you've been involved in self-defense shooting, okay, you're looking, say you're a good shot, you just killed this person, you're looking at potential life imprisonment and potential life itself, depending on the jurisdiction. And you've got a prosecutor that is very anti-firearm, for example, but the prosecutor is saying, you know what, I can kind of see what your client is thinking at this particular point in the video, because a lot of this stuff is on video, or this particular, you know, point, I can see what he or she is thinking, but I still think they're wrong. And so we're going to proceed with the case, we're going to go to trial, but we're willing to offer your clients X amount of years of prison time. Now think about the significance of that. If you're looking at potential life imprisonment or life itself, and somebody is telling you, and you're thinking, I might never see my family again, I might never see anybody again, and somebody is telling you, you know what, I can get you a 15-year deal, for example.
And I think, you know, we have friends all the time, and people I train, they're like, oh, well, if it's justified, I'm good. I'm out. I'm free and clear, and like we can go get a burger after. And
common misunderstanding.
It's a common misunderstanding. So what is, like, how can you explain to someone who has that misunderstanding of, yeah, if you are justified, it's not just like, cool, go have a good day and go hug your family. What does that process and misconception look like?
Oh, it's very prominent. It's a very, very prominent misconception. Yeah. I mean, in terms of what does it look like, I see it all the time. I see a lot of people that are very surprised. I get, one of the biggest questions I get when I believe in educating people about their rights and about how they can go about protecting themselves after they've had to protect themselves against somebody else. And I've lectured all over this country, and one of the biggest questions I get is something along those lines. Well, you know what? I train. Like, for example, your family, and I've heard wonderful things, by the way, about your family's ranges and everything that they provide in terms of education and training. And that's something, that's another point, you know, we should get to at some point, is the real true importance of that, and representing somebody that's trained and that's educated as opposed to somebody that's a novice that has very limited exposure to it, because it's a blessing to have that type of training, that type of education, if in fact, God forbid, you find yourself in a situation. But what I'm saying is, people very often will come up to me and say, you know what, I've done this training, I know what I'm supposed to avoid, you know, and the question that follows would be like, why do I need self-defense liability insurance, for example, or why do I have to be concerned? You know, why? What am I training for if I'm still going to need insurance?
Or that'll never happen to me.
Exactly.
I live in a nice neighborhood. That'll never happen
to
me.
Biggest thing that I hear just about everybody saying that's not going to happen to me. And I represent people in different everyday spaces. It's kind of crazy. Within a space of time, I had 3 different Walmart self-defense situations within a short window of time. I mean, a Walmart, middle of the day, traffic, other people around.
Not like late at night.
3 different ones. All 3 had to go to trial. All 3 subsequently found not guilty, but they all had to go to trial. They all had to experience this horrific nightmare.
Obviously, it's going to be different from time to time, but how long is that process? Just to kind of, for everyone listening to understand, is it a month? Is it 2 years? Or what is that process?
So here's the thing when it comes to that. I do more cases out of Chicago than anywhere else. I practice in all these different states, but Illinois is home base, so I do a lot of cases out of Chicago. And Chicago probably has the most self-defense shootings every year for I don't know how many years in a row now, in my opinion. And in Chicago, they had a recent article a few years back, but it's still recent in my head, a few years back, maybe about 3 years back, where they ran this article on the fact that it takes the average murder case 7 years before it goes to trial. 7 years. Now I want you to think about this. You're being charged with murder. The prosecution is arguing that you should be denied any bail. You are, if in fact you're denied bail, you remain in custody. So you're sitting in custody for 7 years on something you're subsequently found not guilty of. If we're representing you, we've been very, very fortunate to have. We've never lost. My firm's never lost a self-defense shooting case where I would call them self-defense shooting cases. We've never lost a criminally charged matter where we've asserted self-defense on behalf of somebody that was shooting to defend themselves for any of these members, for any of these self-defense shootings. So that's a fun fact, and
I would say that's an incredibly fun fact.
And we arguably, along those lines, handled more trials, more self-defense trials than any attorneys in the country. So we have a lot of experience in dealing with this and addressing these. And I'll tell you something that's a common theme with all these cases, no matter where I'm practicing it. A common theme is that people are waning through what's called a discovery process. Discovery is when they have to turn over any evidence, any documentation, anything. Recordings, anything, and now they have to turn all that over, and they make you wait for a very long time.
Talking about that evidence, a question that I have always thought of is, I have a social media account, so me handling firearms and training, or other people posting about firearm, it turns into evidence. And also just the technology that we have, it's 2026, so everyone has a Ring camera on their door, everyone has a cell phone, and so how does that affect also when, yes, it's good when Ring cam footage is collected, but are there any flaws in that as well?
There are. So I'm a big football fan, and I'm going to throw this out there. I'm a big Bears fan, which is a very ugly defeat recently, but the reason I'm saying this is because in football we have Monday morning quarterbacking, right? Everybody has, Sunday their favorite team played, and Monday everybody's everybody's chiming in, everybody has something to say. You know, they missed this, the quarterback should have done this, the quarterback should have done that. And the reason I'm saying this is because when the quarterback calls for the ball, and just follow along, I'm sorry, with this analogy. The quarterback calls for the ball, he gets the ball, and all of a sudden he has a bunch of different huge guys that are running at him, right?
Right.
For what purpose? To kill him. I mean, it's really, the quarterback, they're coming at you like they're trying to take you out.
Yep.
So you have so much time. You have to decide, am I going to throw the ball? Am I going to hand it off to running back? Am I going to, yes, am I going to run with the ball myself? Am I going to drop to the ground because I'm scared to death right now?
Yeah.
You know, you have to look into all those different things, right? And you have to do that in seconds, sometimes milliseconds. You have to make a decision. And that's very similar to what members are experiencing, to what people that are being attacked, what they're experiencing when they're being attacked. And they have to make a determination in a matter of sometimes milliseconds as to whether, as to what they're going to do. And this decision can easily affect their life. If they choose not to defend themselves and this aggressor, this attacker continues to come forward in the same manner, they could potentially die. If they choose to defend themselves, you know, depending on whether they hit this person, whether they kill this person, regardless of whatever it is, even if they miss this person, they can be criminally charged in a number of different ways. And the reason I say this is because with Ring camera, okay, during the course of a trial, after you've made this decision, God forbid you've been involved in a situation like this, you're being criminally charged, you've gone however long to be able to get to the court stage, you're now in the middle of the trial, and you had to make a decision with just very, very limited information. People that are watching football games on television, they have it in high def. They can see everything. When I was growing up, you'd be lucky to be able to figure out which person is which person. Well, and you have like the bird's eye view, right?
Exactly. So you can see everything. You're not seeing what the quarterback is seeing.
Every last thing. So you're saying it's very convenient for you not to be attacked. You're not the one being attacked with the football. You're not the one having to make this having to have this exacting judgment in a matter of seconds or milliseconds. And somebody is now saying, oh my gosh, why didn't you do this? You see this person is wide open.
Yeah.
But you don't see that because you're being attacked from a number of different directions. The reason I use this analogy is twofold. First off, to introduce people to what self-defense really is. Because you're making a decision, you have to make a determination, and the key question is, would a reasonable person believe that he or she is about to receive great bodily harm or death? You have to make that determination, and you have to act on your decision immediately. But the second reason is that with the introduction of Ring cameras and all this additional evidence, now you've got a jury that's being exposed to a whole number of different things that you never knew, that you had no idea even existed. You're just looking at the guy running at you. You're the quarterback just looking at the guy running at you at the time. You don't see all these different things. And Ring cameras are also going to show different perspectives from different vantage points. So from this vantage point, it might look just like in a football game. It might look like, hey, you didn't have to do what you did. But
where
from
they have to go
vantage,
back and they're like, we have to get all these different camera angles to make sure that it's hit correctly.
Yes, so I mean and they do that in football games. They're like, okay, we're going to show you a couple different perspectives. And you're like, now I see what they did. And so Ring camera is it's just another bit of evidence that's going to be used in all probability. They're going to try to use that against you.
Yeah.
And we conversely have to try to use those different perspectives to explain why it is that, hey, this is what you're seeing over here, but you didn't see from this angle over here. We found this out over here.
I love this analogy, and I want to come back to it. But I also want to talk about, you were saying on the training side, I think training, being careful of social media, obviously. I'm still very careful on social media. I'm obviously very public of what I do, but I also want to make sure that none of my social media is used against me if, God forbid, I did have to use my firearm to defend myself. And so I think, does having levels of training, if you are in an incident, or if you have clients saying, hey, I took this USCCA training to make sure that I was a responsible gun owner, not just I bought a gun and there's videos of me shooting in the desert with a gun sideways. There's two differences there, right?
Yeah. Well, what's happened in the last 5-10 years or so, maybe even more now, I don't want to date myself, but what's happened here is that you have juries and judges that feel very strongly one way or another concerning firearms. So you'll have prosecutors, the same thing with prosecutors, that will be arguing, hey, this person has all this training, this person should know better, this person should know that he or she should have done this, and they should have done this instead of that. And again, it's Monday morning quarterbacking, but they're injecting all this negative stigma that exists out there. They're injecting that into their arguments directly and indirectly to kind of just tug on certain emotions that people have naturally, and especially in certain jurisdictions. You can defend yourself in one jurisdiction, the police can come out and say, gosh, this guy had it coming to him, it was a matter of time, and you probably did the community a good service, have a nice day, we'll clean up this mess. You can defend yourself in another jurisdiction where you've got a prosecutor that's basically hell-bent on charging anybody with firearms, any firearm-based offense, and you know, the argument is, well, this person has a family, this person would still be here. You took the law in your own hands. You played the judge and executioner all at the same time, and they're not really taking into consideration what you're experiencing at the time. The tremendous fear that you're experiencing. They're again Monday morning quarterback.
So going back to this football analogy, because I love analogies. Okay. When I teach, I do it. Love analogies. And talking about, you know, when the quarterback gets the ball, and I just imagine, I've watched a little bit of football, but I am not an avid watcher. But I kind of, you know, I understand it. But when you're at, you know, in the comfort of your own home and you're watching the quarterback and they're going back and forth and they're like, and you're just like, just throw the ball.
Yeah.
You know, I think of a self-defense situation, and you look at the quarterback and you're like, this is taking forever. Why aren't they throwing the ball? Or why aren't they running? Why aren't they making a decision? When really it's only a couple seconds, but you're not in that stressful situation, and it probably feels like a millisecond to the quarterback.
Exactly. So you're seated in a comfortable chair. Same thing with the jury. I mean, they're seated in a courtroom. They're surrounded by law. They've got a judge. They've got sheriffs, bailiffs in the courtroom. So they feel comfortable. They're in a comfortable setting, and they're looking at a whole bunch of different things as though, you know, they're making a decision on whether or not somebody acted appropriately under the circumstances. And I think there's something really important to be said about that, because in all these different states there are very few common denominators, which is another issue. When you travel to different states, you have to be aware that they have different laws.
Yeah.
But there are very few common denominators. One common denominator is the law on self-defense. When you're using lethal force, when can I use lethal force to defend myself? And as I just said, it's when a reasonable person would believe that he or she is about to receive great bodily harm or death. But what's the most dangerous word in that statement? Reasonable. Think about it, because reasonable suggests that it's an objective standard, right? I mean, when you hear reasonable, you think, okay, if I pull everybody out here at SHOT Show, I explain what happened in this particular situation, everybody can vote, and if the majority of people vote this particular way, then it was reasonable. If they vote the other way, it wasn't reasonable. And it suggests that. And
like you said, you know, it's 2026 now, and everyone is so politically divided.
And that's why it's so dangerous, because you take it from the reasonableness, you take this from the reasonableness of, like, the law is saying it has to be reasonable, right? But truly, at the very beginning, it's a subjective standard. Why is it subjective? Because it's what you subjectively are dealing with, what you're experiencing with adrenaline, stress, when you're responding to this very dangerous situation as it presents itself in a very quick, you know, very, very quick manner. So it's subjective. Then it goes to objective in terms of the law being reasonable, but it goes back to subjective, and I think this is very important for people to understand in training as well. And the reason it goes back to subjective, even though it suggests that it's objective, the reason it goes back to subjective is because ultimately it's a judge or a jury that's making a determination, and they subjectively are making a determination as to what you did, as to whether what you did was reasonable or not. And you think about the significance of this. You think about what that's actually saying, because these people, these random strangers, if it's a jury, or this random stranger, if it's just a judge, are passing judgment on what you had to do under extreme circumstances when you're being attacked, and you have all this fear. They can't possibly understand that fear. I mean, that's my job. That's my firm's job, is to try to really introduce that fear. But think about that. They're not there. They're in a courtroom, and some of these people don't even know what it's like to even be in a situation like that. They have absolutely no idea.
Or they only see what they see on TV and all the, you know, all the true crime and everything like that. I want to emphasize everything you're saying. I think it can be a heavy topic, but it's also needed information for anyone who's listening. And I think it also just, you know, I know it, and I educate people. Get training. Go with USCCA. Have some sort of self-defense liability insurance for this specific instance. But I really want to emphasize, like, how much that actually matters. So, how often are you on cases for USCCA? Because I think people think, well, I don't need this insurance because they probably handle, you know, a dozen cases here and there. But truly, is there a number or kind of a ballpark of how often you're working on USCCA cases?
Well, I'll say I've represented literally hundreds of USCCA members, and again, throughout this country, which is a privilege, because USCCA, I believe, has over 1,200 plus attorneys that they have just in their USCCA network. And I've had a significant number of those clients. I've been fortunate to represent a significant number of those clients. What it is with this, with USCCA and with this training and having it all, just a side note, the importance of this, and when it comes to USCCA members themselves, the importance of the training, the education, is it's truly invaluable. People don't really understand it because, just as you said, there's so much ignorance out there. There's so many people that just say, hey, first off, there are people that say, I've got a firearm. I don't need to train. I mean, you point, you shoot, it's that simple. And you know from personal experience, from your family, you know how crazy impactful that is for so many different people.
Well, they only, they buy the gun, they're like, I'm good, I'm just going to have it in my nightstand. I'm like, no, we got to make sure we're good with it, but also I think people don't realize that you have to train your mind as well to process information, to make that decision in a split second. It's not just the tool of, I need to be able to shoot this thing accurately and it not be used against me, but I also need to know the legal side, and I also need to know the mental side and emotional side. There's so many different pillars to self-defense and training yourself.
So in finishing the question that you had presented, I just had, we call it a hat trick. We just had 3 different USCCA victories, 3 different matters for trial that all concluded on the same day, this past Thursday.
Oh, this past Thursday?
2 different states this past Thursday. I was like, how crazy is this? This just happened. I'm going out to shot. But this past Thursday, we had a case we had 2 different cases out of Chicago, and we had 1 case in South Bend, Indiana. 3 different courthouses, 2 different states, 3 different victories. So you're asking how often it happens. People don't think it happens that often. There were 3 that we just successfully beat in the same day.
Cases.
All USCCA members, coincidentally, yes. So, and there's such a big difference between having self-defense liability insurance, which you get with the USCCA, as opposed to not having, this structure and this foundation. We won a self-defense case for somebody that's being charged with murder. I think it was December 9th. My partner just won this trial again in Chicago, and this guy, his father, from the point that this incident took place to the point that it was finally concluded, his father died, in large part because of the stress of this situation on his son. His mother has serious health issues right now, again, largely attributable to what her son is experiencing. The young man that we represented was in custody for a while. We had to fight to get him out of custody, which was very difficult to get him out of custody, to get him released from custody to begin with. Then we get him released from custody just to be on electronic monitoring. And there's all different kinds of things that he had to comply with, otherwise the threat of going back to be locked up. It impacts your ability to provide for your family. He's a young father. He has children, and that's impacted as well. There's so many different layers, and I'm thinking, gosh, it's so sad because I saw this family pull down on retirement accounts, mortgage on their home to do all this stuff. I'm not getting paid anything to speak up here. I want to be very clear. I'm not getting paid to endorse USCCA. I'm just talking about, and there's nobody even knows that I'm getting ready to say anything because you and I obviously are just meeting for the first time, but the significance, the difference in what that person experienced and a member experiences, for example, when you have the financial support, you have the financial ability to post bail, you have the financial ability to pay for attorney's fees, not just for criminal charges, but if in fact you're being sued civilly, you have that ability to have that paid for as well. People are so dismissive of this. They just think, I'm not going to need it. And that's the biggest thing, what you said earlier. It is such an important point, Paige, is that people just think, this is not going to happen to me.
Yeah.
I'm prepared. I already know this is not going to happen to me. I'm a law-abiding citizen. I've never been charged before. People are going to see that what I did was right. And you could have something as silly as a political agenda that's going to result in you being criminally charged and result in you undergoing a trial that you wouldn't otherwise undergo.
Or something that you did 15 years ago that gets pulled up and you're like, no, that's out of context, and then your entire life and your character and your family are questioned.
I have a prosecutor right now trying to introduce the fact that my client got suspended twice from fights in high school. He's in his 30s right now. In high school, they're trying to introduce that as something to be able to show. Yes, it gets that ridiculous. It gets really, really bad, and people think that, hey, this should be pretty straightforward. If we're going to show that it was self-defense, we'll be able to show that this is the way you're trained to do it. It's not, because there's obviously there are at least 2 sides to every story, and you've got at least 2 perspectives to every one of these stories as well.
I want to emphasize 2 things while you're talking. So one is, I think it's one of the, as we're talking about this, of like, this can be terrible, you know, having that support from USCCA is imperative, but also I want to emphasize that it's worth it to have this, and it's worth, you know, your life. It's like, I'm never leaving my house. I never want to go through any of this. I'm scared to go out in public because of everything that you're saying in this, my family, and it can be heavy, but also I think your life is worth it. And even though we're saying it is going to take longer than you think, your life is worth it. And that's what self-defense is about.
And let me be clear, so it's going to be heavy, period. It's going to be heavy, period. It's just a question now how heavy it's going to be.
Yeah.
Because, you know, if whether you have, you know, self-defense liability insurance coverage or not, if you're facing criminal charges for a very significantly criminally charged matter, it's going to be heavy regardless, and it's going to have an effect. It's going to have an effect on relationships. People get divorced. As I just gave you an example, somebody's father died dealing with it. Somebody's mother really is having a difficult time. This is my baby, you know, on trial for murder. This is not who he is. This is not, you know, he's just defending himself. Why doesn't everybody understand it? The family doesn't understand why people don't understand it. The person we're representing doesn't understand it. It's just that the comfort, the level of comfort, the level of knowing that you have that foundation in place, again, it's immeasurable. It's just such an awesome thing when I'm dealing with somebody that we know everything's being paid for. You know, we have in-house investigators. I can't have my in-house investigators start going out and investigating a number of things necessarily. Everything has to be approved by this client. And USCCA, it's not USCCA that actually does it, because people have, that's another misconception. USCCA is not an insurance company. They provide training, they provide education, and they provide a self-defense liability insurance through Universal Fire Casualty Insurance Company. So it's a separate entity. You know, it's not USCCA making decisions either. It's an insurance company. But that insurance company I've never had an issue. As many cases I've done, as many people as I've represented, we're talking about hundreds of cases, I've never had an issue with them denying a member's claim. So all this nonsense that's out there that's being, again, there's no financial motivation for me to be up here saying this. This is from firsthand personal experience. It doesn't exist. I've never had, they call me up, they say, Dave, do you believe, because they know me very well right now because I've represented so many of their members, but they say, do you believe this is a self-defense case? And the minute I say yes, it's you know, it's how much does it cost? They don't question it. And that's an amazing thing for somebody that's experienced this type of trauma to have that type of backing. It's a godsend.
And I want to emphasize, just so that we make sure, one, we celebrate you, and I think I don't want to just skip over it, but it is
Appreciate it.
3 USCCA members, 3 victories in one day.
Yes.
In January 2026. Yes. I think that
Thursday, whatever day Thursday was,
is incredible.
Finish all 3 of those cases.
Dave McDermott, any last notes or things that you think that the audience needs to know that we haven't touched on?
I think to the extent that this audience anybody in the audience is considering self-defense liability insurance, I hope that there's been a lot gleaned from this conversation. I hope there's been a lot learned. But to the extent that you have that you're questioning it, I think that it is literally one of the very best things that you can be doing in this space. If you carry, even if you don't carry, if you own a firearm, and arguably the product that they have, the service that they provide, is for any type of self-defense. But me personally, I'm attached to the firearm world, to firearm cases. But if you carry, if you possess, you should have a plan in place, and your family should know about that plan, so everybody can avail themselves of it. It should not be something coming up after the fact. You can't do it after the fact. You can't be like, oh, I was considering this. This is so crazy. I was considering this. Literally, page without exaggeration, I've represented people that have told me, you know what, I almost got that coverage. I almost got coverage, whether it's USCCA or any type of coverage. I almost got coverage, and we thought exactly what you're saying. We thought, you know what, I'm not putting myself in a situation. I deliberately only go out to certain places. I'm not somebody going out late at night. I'm not putting myself in a situation where it's more likely. And I think that there's such a misconception there where people think this happens in some dark alley, or you're up to something bad, or you're in a very bad neighborhood, and yes. And I think that the thing I hope has been imparted to people that are listening in is the importance of preparedness, the importance of, and that comes in 3 different forms. It comes in, training. It comes in education. Right now, this is the educational portion of it, right? Training, something your family does. And then it comes in having a plan in the hopefully unlikely event. Let's just say it's unlikely, because it doesn't happen to everybody.
Right.
Fortunately, it doesn't happen to everybody. It's happening far more than it's ever happened before, and that's a question we didn't address, or something that we didn't address. It's happening a lot more often. These self-defense cases are far more prevalent than they have ever been, hands down. So it's really happening far more often. But God forbid it does happen. Number 3 is having a self-defense liability insurance, having a plan for what happens in the event that it does happen. So thank you.
Dave McDermott, thank you so much. I have one last question.
Yes.
Okay, because I know everyone's wondering, do you wear these shirts all the time? Because I think it's your character.
Yeah.
Do you wear them, how many of these do you have?
It's a personal question. Yes, I have a lot of these types of shirts. I love these. Not
a lot of people can pull off a shirt like that, and I feel like you can pull it off.
You just said that I pull it off. I appreciate that.
You absolutely pull it off.
Because I do wear quite a few of them. So if I'm not pulling it off, that'd be one
Sorry
way
to
to
put you on the
find
spot,
out.
but I was like, everyone's wondering, and I know they are. But Dave McDermott, thank you so much for being here. We will be back with more content here at the USCCA booth at SHOT Show 2026.